our role as ECOZI is to ensure that the government implements policies that address the issues of quality education in Zimbabwe. So as such, we bring together different organizations, teachers' unions, organizations working for the achievement of gender parity, organizations working for children with disabilities, various organizations that speak to issues of education in Zimbabwe. And so we bring together those organizations to ensure that the right to education in Zimbabwe is fulfilled. We advocate for policies that address such issues that speak to the quality of education.
Furniture kana vana vakagarira zvinhu zvakafa kana kuti mabhodhi kana asingachaiti hazvichaiti. Then vanhu vanoita masciences havana mabooks akakwana, especially textbooks. So tachikumbirawo at least a donation of textbook, biology, integrated and physical science.
Toilets, classes ekudzidzira nemabooks ekuverenga ange awanda.
Kugamuchirai kuprovince yedu kuzuva ranhasi rinocherechedza kodzero yedzidzo kumunhu wose. Ndoda kuti tisununguke tatofara kudhara. Ndaona kuti mutambo watotsuswa nevana vadiki vari kutsoropodza kukosha kwezuva irori. Ndoda kuti Honourable Vice President na Minister ndakugamuchirai, sunungukai, farai, ndatenda.
It is our wish as city fathers to have such a gathering in our city. I understand that the Global Action Week for 2015 Global Campaign for Education focuses on the theme, Right to Education 2000 to 2030. Vote for education. Teachers, civic organizations, NGOs, and students are also participating in these celebrations.
Children are at the center of the learning process. They are the building blocks of any nation, and as such, their development to full potential hinges on education. And this calls for access to quality inclusive education. As the Education Coalition of Zimbabwe, ECOZI, we continue to applaud the Government of Zimbabwe for its considered efforts to promote quality education. Since our independence in Zimbabwe, the government has made a lot of efforts in promoting education for all, including the building of schools, putting in place safety nets for vulnerable children, such as the Basic Education Assistance Module BIM, provision of textbooks under the Education Transition Fund, introduction and strengthening of the Early Childhood Development Program, policies that ensure that children in and out of school have access to education. However, as civil society organizations, we are calling on the government to increase its efforts to promote access to quality education for all children. We are calling for the government to ensure that things that are barriers to education are eliminated. For example, ensuring that fees and levies do not become a barrier to accessing full education. Ensuring that safety nets such as BIM are accessible to all children, including the early childhood development pupils. Introduction of measures that address harmful practices that push children out of school. Infrastructural development that meets the learning needs of different learners. Provision of conducive learning environments for teachers, making education a public good and avoiding privatization of education, including having gender-responsive policies. We are pleased as civil society organizations to be working together with the government to ensure that the right to education for all children is achieved. As Zimbabwe embarks on the journey of the Sustainable Development Goals, we are hopeful that the right to education for all children will be realized.
Vice President, education to us for children with disability is the strongest tool we can use to eradicate poverty. When we call for education for all, we then call for universal design. Universal design, dotaura nechishona nditi, tinokumbira hurumende painovaka zvikoro nezvikoro zvakavakwa kudhara zvigone kupindwa nomunhu wese, yatinoti universal design. Ane wheelchair asina wheelchair akwanise kupinda. Tine dambudziko nematoireti ezvikoro kumaruzevha zvikuru Blair toilets. Munhu ane wheelchair haapinde. Zvikoro izvezvo tinokumbira maheads kuti dei zvagadziriswa. Tinotaura kune universal design with issues to do with curricular adaptation. Vana vari deaf vanofanira kuti vanyore ma-examinations akati siyanei nevamwe in the sense of examination adaptations. Sign language is a language. With regards to the new constitution, it is now a national language. Therefore, Vice President, we ask for a sign language bill which will compel all institutions to have sign language teachers. Can we increase the budget for special needs education? Hence we would vote for education. That is, if we are going to increase the budget for special needs education. The learning and teaching material for learners with disability again need to be made abundant. Assistive technology and information technology is the greatest equalizer among disabled learners. We therefore call upon our government to avail assistive technology to learners. 10% of the country's GDP is lost by leaving persons with disabilities out of program. Meaning when we talk of Zimbabwe, when we talk of growing this economy, we can grow this economy by including persons with disability, starting from education, going on to issues to deal with employment. And of course, my last appeal, Vice President, is also our patron. We would want to have more disability representation in the House of Parliament. We only have 2 senators representing 2 million people with disabilities. We would want to ask you to use your skills as the lawyer, as the minister responsible for amendment of the Constitution, that come next elections, we'll have at least 10 people with disabilities, and of course a sign language bill. I thank you.
Yes, we can learn. Hearing and non-hearing students can learn together. Yes, we can learn. Under one teacher we can learn. Under one roof we can learn. Under one teacher we can learn. With fellow deaf students we can work together. We can stay together. We can dine together. Yes, we can. Vote for inclusive education. Vote for inclusive education.
So as teachers, from the teacher's perspective, we would like to emphasize the issue of quality. Quality, according to us, relies on 3 pillars. The quality environment in which the education, the learning experience has to take place, quality teachers, and the quality tools that we need to use. We would like to speak in support of the initiatives that are being put in place by the ministry and government in terms of coming up with a new curriculum. A curriculum that speaks to the Constitution of Zimbabwe, which acknowledges and recognizes the up to 16 indigenous languages that we have in this country. Realizing that if that curriculum, if that education, if that right to education is to be realized, then honestly it must be spoken, it must be delivered and packaged in a language of my choice.
Education in Zimbabwe, we are going forward with it. Education in Zimbabwe, we are going forward with it. Inclusive education, we are going forward with it. Computer education, we are going forward with it.
UNESCO as a global institution is your partner in ensuring that the right to education is fulfilled. Last month, the Minister of Primary and Secondary Education went to Incheon together with other high-level officials plus a representative of civil society of Zimbabwe to commit to the Sustainable Development Goal of ensuring quality and inclusive education for not only for the young children, but for youth and adults. In this new Sustainable Development Goal 4, which is the 4th goal of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, we are sure that with the present ZIM asset, the goals and targets of this Sustainable Development Goal will be reached.
The Ministry of Higher and Tertiary Education, Science and Technology Development is a critical stakeholder in 4 of the 6 education for all goals, namely early child care and education. And I must hasten to say the Ministry was given a mandate or a directive by government to produce 11,000 ECD teachers by the end of 2018. And the Ministry is now churning 2,300 ECD teachers per year to achieve this goal in line with the ZIM asset. And we are also committed to produce, to goal number 3, which is youth and adult skill, which is ensuring the learning needs for all young people and adults are made through active access to appropriate learning and life skills. And also goal number 5, which is gender parity and equality. And also the last goal, which is goal number 6, which is quality education.
I've always been taught that education is knowledge, and knowledge is power. Power that gets you to have what you want and work towards getting it. Power that helps you overcome all obstacles as you create a better tomorrow for you, for me, for us, and for Zimbabwe. So vote for education and help create a better country. In Section 75 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, every citizen must have a decent, state-funded education, and as a government that is in support of ZIM asset, the issue of children not going to school because parents do not have enough money to fund for their education should be well addressed. This can be done by reducing the amount of school fees paid in government schools as the government improves its budget towards educational facilities and services. If more money was spent on educating the youth today, then less money would be spent on recovering the economy tomorrow. Why? Because 1, more education, the less thieves we have stealing from governmental banks and other institutes, but more doctors, more engineers, creating a more secure environment for us. 2, more education, less street kids. Since we also have children on the streets as a result of not being given the opportunity to learn, then we could have more governmental groups funding for education of children who are underprivileged, so as to give them the same opportunities at building a better life for themselves as those children coming from better homes. Less education, more prostitution, as young girls who have not been given the chance to learn or even proceed primary level may resort to selling their bodies for their daily upkeep and survival. More prostitution in the country equals to a rapid spread of diseases. And once we have outbreaks of diseases in Zimbabwe, we find our government having to supply medication for its people in public hospitals and paying specialists to find cures to these diseases. So we're encouraging the Zimbabwean government to vote for education as it is in everyone's best interest.
To say that it gives us great pleasure as education to be part of this occasion. When we mark, indeed, the launch of this year's Global Action Week theme, which is the Right to Education 2000 and 2030. We have an opportunity to reflect on our experiences in education as well as our vision for education as a nation. We are also presented with an opportunity to identify any gaps that there may be and to devise strategies together that will ensure that the education of all our people receives camera-focused attention in terms of access and the quality of learning outcomes. I am a firm believer that every child is a bundle of possibilities, and those of our learners who may not have achieved good learning outcomes in the past may have been victims of a variety of factors. A number of questions quickly come to mind. For example, did the education system have the right curriculum for the learners? Was it broad enough? What were the learning conditions of those who did not achieve much? The potential to respond to the needs of every individual learner and those of the nation is in the new curriculum that has been proposed and is awaiting cabinet decision. What will be required going forward is for the nation to appreciate the potential that education has to transform individuals and societies and bring about national development. In our estimation, it's in the Tier 1 category. As we move into the post-2015 agenda, it will be important for us all as a nation to recognize the key enabling role that education plays in the development of nations. Many examples abound, and as the nation engages in the creation of employment, it will be imperative to prepare concurrently the future workforce. Any meaningful development, therefore, requires knowledge and skills. If properly developed, the current population of learners, which is about 4.5 million of them, can become a most productive future workforce. Education has itself the potential to create employment, as good basic education and skills have the potential to create opportunities for some school graduates to become employers in their own right. Education will play its full role in the course of the implementation of Zima Asset. But who has come this afternoon to grace this function? And this special guest who is in our midst to celebrate with us the acknowledgement that our nation has about the status of education is a special member of our society. He is a lawyer by training, and I've described him before as a politician by choice, a practicing farmer, a businessman, a veteran of the liberation struggle, and former member of parliament for Chirumanzu Zimbabwe constituency before his elevation to the vice presidency. He is not a stranger to issues of access to quality education and educational infrastructure development, as he came face to face with them on a regular basis, especially in the new resettlement areas. He has contributed enormously to the construction and rehabilitation of many schools in the new resettlement areas of Chirumanzu, Zimbabwe, from his own resources, after realizing that funds allocated under the Constituency Development Fund were not adequate. Our guest of honor today also sponsors the annual book prize for the best law student at the Midlands State University right here in Gweru. Except for a brief stint as Speaker of Parliament, he has spent his entire political career as a cabinet minister. He was the chief legal advisor to the governing ZANU-PF party during the talks or negotiations leading to the inclusive government in Zimbabwe. He survived the death penalty by a whisker as a result of being underage at the time. Opposition to the death penalty, he only survived the death penalty because he had not yet reached the mandatory age for hanging. I'm persuaded to think that the harrowing experience of seeing some of his colleagues being hanged must have contributed to his fervent opposition against the death penalty, to the extent that he has never signed any papers for any prisoner on death row to be hanged. He was appointed Vice President, as I said, and Minister of Justice on 12 December 2014. Distinguished delegates, I now request you to welcome none other than the Vice President and Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Comrade Emerson Mnangagwa, to present his statement.
The advancement of any country is solely dependent on the levels of education of its people. The Zimbabwe education system has undergone massive expansion as a result of government's commitment to providing education for all. The government has ensured that education receives the highest vote in the national budget as a way of affirming government's commitment to providing education. Recently, ministers of education gathered in South Korea to deliberate on the future of education for all. The targets on education have been set for further consideration and endorsement by the United Nations General Assembly in September. I am proud to say Zimbabwe has been part of this process to reaffirm our commitment to accessing quality education for all. The government has noted that the demand for education continues to be on the high side. Consequently, there is need to continue to build schools in urban areas to decongest the mega schools which are not affording children adequate learning time in schools. We also think that everybody, every citizen, it doesn't matter what walk of life or what engagement you are in, you need to contribute to the education of our children or your child collectively. We must all contribute. So we have given green light for private partnerships to participate in the growth of construction of schools. And I hope if that is achieved, we will have less problems from Dokora. The learner's right to education should not be eroded by the distances to schools, and the government is making every effort within its means to ensure that children walk shorter distances. In some circumstances, children's right to education is compromised by harmful religious and cultural practices. There are various practices that take learners away from school, such as early marriages. We deplore early marriages. Teenage pregnancies, we deplore such practices, and other harmful social practices. The government is and continues to frown upon such practices. The business of children is in school, not in houses as housewives or teen husbands. No. Tinoda kuti vana vedu vakomana vasikana vaende kuchikoro. Vapedze chikoro. Mukomana musikana. Pedza secondary education yako. Enda ku university upedze. Kana kuma vocational training schools, ma teachers colleges, ma technical colleges. Oenda opedza. So mubereki. Mudunhu rauri. Wanikwa uchibatsira chikoro. Usati ndavana vangu vakapedza kufunda vose. Kana vana vangu vachivadiki. Aiwa. This is a community commitment to where you stay. Kubatsira kuti vana. When I was I was so impressed. Nanzwa kuti ndeve ECD. When I was kuita panguva dzedu kuma 40s, 50s. Zero takasambofumira kuenda kuchikoro. Tazoenda kuchikoro kana wabata nzero kudai. Kana usina kuibata haubvumiri kuchikoro. Kwa usingabvunzwa kuti vana ava. Look at what they're able to do at their age.
What you actually are saying, that you are saying every school in the country, yes, in terms of facilities, such as how to go in the building and come out of the building, I think that's already law. We're already doing that. And how to go to abolishing facility, for toilets or bathing, that is possible. But to have actual facilities necessary for each type of disability might not be possible. We think that at this stage, particular disabilities of a particular nature, we create schools where they can be catered for by specialized teachers trained for that purpose. This is where we are. Perhaps in future we may be able to develop beyond that. But it is not easy to implement that request. I therefore urge the parents to remain steadfast in complementing government efforts in providing education. In fact, education should be everyone's business, stakeholders, captains of industry, in terms of support, provision of facilities, play materials, appropriate infrastructure, and other learning materials. The constraint we have is the availability of resources to implement the changes you would want to see in the education system of our country. I thank you.
We have had graduates who have graduated from school, but then when they get out, it becomes hard to find employment. So in essence, our education system has basically been preparing us to be employees, not employers. So that is something that we would like to see being addressed in the post-2015 agenda.
We applaud the government of Zimbabwe for the efforts that they've made towards the realization of quality of education. But we still feel that a lot more has to be done in terms of ensuring that especially children do not drop out of school because of the many hindrances that are there. The economic situation in Zimbabwe sees children that are marginalized fall out of the education system. We are aware that the ministry has put in place a policy to address children who are out of school so that they have access to coming back to school, even though through the non-formal way, but we do acknowledge the efforts that the ministry is doing.
We realize that in the past there was a trust, for example, there was a policy on education with production, which was an attempt to link theory with practice. And now we realize that there was of late a realization that the Commission of Inquiry into Education and Training of 1999, which is popularly known as the Nziramasanga Commission, has now to be implemented. And we want to believe that the work that we have been doing with ministry and government in order to implement the recommendations of the Commission of Inquiry into Education and Training, this is where the future lies. The future of the education system in this country actually lies in the implementation of those resolutions, of those recommendations that are in that particular document.